go back to the hen yard to feed, and during the daytime, and they'll just hang around with your chickens.
I have actually noticed that they like higher spots. Versus the chickens don't really necessarily care.
Yeah, turkeys are very territorial. They don't want to go far.
All right.
Yeah.
So we finally are live, which is just amazing. Because ironically, I titled this Technical Difficulties Over. And 30 minutes ago, when we thought we went live, I announced technical difficulties over. The only thing that I did different was I repasted my stream. There's like a code that anyway, whatever.
It's like that actual like hexadecimal of the stream.
I re-copied and pasted it. That's the only thing that I did different. I don't know. It's just wild. But you guys, for the record, you guys that are watching now, because we have at least one person here, you missed the most epic conversation. Oh, that reminds me, Bear Arms. Davey504. That's another channel that I watch a lot of. Italian bass player. He's silly and hilarious. But yeah, man, I watch a lot of YouTube.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
I guess. I mean, I'm trying to learn stuff though. Some stuff is for entertainment. I do. It's like almost 50-50 or whatever. But today I was trying to work my way through like a complete instructional on how to install siding.
Yep. I watched that one you sent me. That dude is hilarious.
Oh, you saw the Dominic guy?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like, and then you do your siding like this, and I mean, it's not always like this, but you get it. Like,
that guy was so great. Oh, and at the end of the video, I was telling Bear Arms, I was like, at the end of the video, I was threatening to kill the neighbor's dog, and everybody in the chat or the comments was like, "It's not animal abuse. Is not funny." Oh
my gosh.
Did I show you? Did I show you that?
Bear's choice, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm drinking some Claw tonight.
Gotcha. All right, I need to actually see what's going on with my kids real quick.
That sounds dangerous.
I'm just hearing if I can hear them. Oh, like if I can hear them.
I get it.
These
things
I
get it.
Are serious. I'll be right back.
I get it. So we're live. Talk about turkeys. Oh, you found it?
Yeah, I've got 4 turkeys. And then what did I count? It was
12 chickens?
26 chickens total.
Oh, wow. You got a lot then.
Yeah. I've got 3 different age groups, though. I've got, like, ones that are fully grown. They're just now fully grown. They should be laying probably, I would say, either at the end of this month or in September.
Are they laying yet?
No.
No?
They should be laying in September.
Oh, okay. That's what you said then. You broke up for just a second.
Yeah. And then I've got 3 Orpingtons and then some kind of, I think it's a white Jersey giant rooster. I think he's a rooster. I don't know.
Oh, you got a white one?
He's actually larger than the other chickens. So
he's gonna get huge.
Chickens. Well, yeah. So I separated him from the other ones. I have some. I had some black Jersey Giants ones, but 2 of them died, and only one of them is left survived. So sadly, I only have 1 black Jersey Giant. I think it's a hen left. I don't know. They're young, but the smaller chickens are in this separate small coop at the little surrounded cage thing we made. But yeah, I got a variety of different ones there. One was called was it gemstone or something like that? Sapphire gemstone. It's supposed to lay like green and blue eggs.
Oh, that's yeah, I like the colored eggs.
Yeah.
When we were at the Iowa State Fair, which was massive, by the way, and there was tons of livestock. We got to see hundreds of breeds of chickens. And did the Asian chickens, they've got chicken legs that are like,
Yeah.
if you're talking about eating a
Yep.
chicken leg or chicken foot, it had to have been an Asian chicken because those things are they look dangerous.
Yeah, it's I've actually, after starting doing this, I've actually really got into the
They went
amount
to
of
bed.
varieties and stuff of chickens there are. It's actually interesting.
The one that we want is we want some silky bantams.
Yes. Now, if you're going to do that, they're smaller, and you're probably going to need to want to keep the smaller bantams separate from the other ones.
Gotcha.
Because the other, if you get normal sized chickens or something like that, and the small bantams, I mean, sometimes when you mix them, the larger ones will kick their butt and
Beat them up and stuff.
yeah. Well, I mean, chickens will pick on the weaker chickens, and
That's
if
why they
they're
Pecking
call
order.
it pecking order. Exactly. That's why they call it that,
yes,
isn't it?
But
if
the
there's
like the roosters, you got to kick them. You got to let them know who's in charge.
yes, yeah, actually,
that's hilarious. I want to
I
get a
don't like
llama,
to
man.
do that, but
The fact
I
that
mean,
llamas make good guard animals is hilarious to me. I'm like, I can't wait.
They're like a velociraptor. They'll spit in your face.
I can't wait until I have a
I've
llama
heard goats
someday.
will too.
Goats, yeah. I don't know, man. The Emperor's New Groove. I mean, all I can think of is David Spade hanging out on my property. I mean,
Llama face.
Yeah.
and
Is that what you would
and
name them?
Napoleon Dynamite, of course, with Tina.
Tina, you fat lord.
Oh man, good stuff. All right,
Yeah.
so I've got a couple of things that have been rolling around on my mind. Obviously, the homesteading is way more important, but we've got 0 viewers and we've got to do something to drag the people in. So let's talk about some sensational stuff. I'm just kidding.
Give them what they want. You know, if we talk about the gays and political stuff, then we'll have people on here in no time. Most of
Yeah.
them will be haters, but they'll be here.
Oh, and they'll bring all their people, and we'll get 1 or 2 converts if we. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you never know.
If we play our cards right, somebody will agree with us.
No, so I did I fell into the trap of doing the white couple. I showed Charles this last night. White couple Google image search. Are you familiar with this?
No, what is that?
Okay.
Screen share.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I don't want to put that on the. I mean, I could. It's just there's some really graphic.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
It's kind of graphic. Like it's not even the kind of stuff that I want to.
No, you're right. Like when you pulled it up, it
Is
was
this like a
totally
search
true.
engine
Like
Okay,
challenge?
so I'll verbally describe it. If you type in, and here's the sad part, and this is actually what concerns me because I recently started to try and okay, well let me check out DuckDuckGo, and then I read some stuff. Oh, DuckDuckGo is actually owned by some of the same people with the same SJW mindset. Blah, they're no better than Google. Blah blah. I was like, oh gosh. So let me check this QWant thing or Quant or whatever in the world. It sounds like a really awkward word, and apparently it originated in France, which isn't
there you go.
helping its case at all. But but I was like, okay, well let me check it out. It's the only one left. It's the only other option. It's I've been using Brave as a browser, which I've been liking, and apparently Quant is partnered with Brave, which is nice, where somebody vouches. So anyway, but I did the image search on Google. I did the image search on Bing. I did the image search on DuckDuckGo. I did the image search on Quant. And here's what I found. Search results are worlds different, okay? Image results are identical, which tells me one thing. DuckDuckGo and Quant, at least, are cheating. They're lazy. They're doing what they can to maintain the facade of a full-fledged search engine, which in reality doesn't actually have its own proprietary algorithms, its own proprietary spiders, the things that hunt the internet and gather. They don't have nobody has the budget to do what Google has done. It's insanity. So what you really should do, if you really are trying to protect the people that you're wanting to provide a service to, is you say, hey, listen, we're not doing image searches. All these other guys, they're giving you an image search. They're just cheating off of Google. Okay. And that's all blacklisted, and it's all completely hand picked for you, obviously. So we're not going to do that. We have our own proprietary spiders to do web searching. It's text based. All we need is a few hundred terabytes and we're good to go. But you're talking about Google has yottabytes. They're past petabytes. Google has yottabytes of servers. We can't compete with that, but use us because anyway. So I'm advertising a pretend advertising pitch, but you get the point. And I did these image searches for black couple, white couple, Asian couple, Hispanic couple, Mexican couple, Arabic couple, and I saw videos on YouTube that show the same, and you can see them yourself. But the point is they're all identical, which means they're using the same image search engine or whatever. I don't know exactly the ins and outs of it, but for the image results
and
to show
pushing the same agenda more or less.
accidentally. I'm not blaming. I'm only blaming Quant and DuckDuckGo for laziness and for or for presenting a facade and calling it something that it isn't. Like I said, their search results are fine. Their image search is not. So,
but inadvertently, they're getting the same message across. Even like through laziness, they are still promoting the same message.
So here's the narrative of what is going on. Bear Arms. When you search black couples, literally 98% of the photos, you scroll, are black couple. Okay?
Yeah.
There are literally 2%. So 2 out of every 100 pictures is an exception to that. Oh, by the way, here's another interesting thing. Almost 100% of all of the other races, when you search, are heterosexual. Okay? So black, Asian, Mexican, Hispanic, Arabic, heterosexual, 100% heterosexual, 100%, and 97, 98% what you typed in. Black, Asian, Mexican, Arabic, 97 to 98%. So 2 or 3 out of 100 are not that. But literally 100% heterosexual. You type in white couple as the image search, and it's kind of like a trolling. It's almost as if Google is just trolling conservatives. It's that absurd. It's like somebody at Google that's a social justice warrior was like, watch this. Watch this, guys. It's almost like that's what happened.
The conservatives are going to lose their minds.
This is going to hit the news. We can do whatever we want, guys. I mean, this is going to be hysterical, and it's only going to make them look stupid.
It honestly reminds me of an April Fool's joke. It's that absurd.
It is. So it's about 60% homosexual, and it's about 80% non-white. So about 60% homosexual photos, and
most of the white ones are homosexual photos.
Well, yeah. So it was.
I would say 1% of the search results for white couples are actually a white heterosexual couple.
5%. 5% was a man and a woman that were both white. And I don't care about white, black. I don't care about interracial. I don't care. It's about the principle and the discrepancy. I'm not a white nationalist. I'm not a white anything except apparently I'm really pale skinned, but I'm not. I don't even know what white is. And here's the really ironic, funny thing. As I was thinking about all of this, and how there's liberals that are making fun of people for complaining about this. Here's the irony. I was like, what if this just only proves that there's no such thing as white? What if those search results just simply prove that white really isn't even a thing? And that's the comical thought that hit my brain as I was thinking about this topic. I was like, I think that this is actually backfiring. At least it did for me. Obviously, other people took it a different way, but for me, I was like, man,
Yeah.
I think that this is just evidence that there really is no such thing as white. And
And if that's the case, then there can be no such thing as white privilege.
I know the double standards and all that stuff is it's ridiculous, hilarious.
My understanding of that is white privilege is just having a dad. That's right on. Like,
Oh man.
not to be rude, but I don't know. That tends to be the circumstances.
Yeah. Well, I like that Thomas Sowell guy. I think he's
Yeah.
pretty legendary. Um, his his voice, his mannerisms, his books, they're all in my wish list on Amazon. Um, I listened to the first good portion of Martin Luther's book that you may know already what I'm talking about, but I'll say the title.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we do.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Charles?
I have a dream.
Martin Luther, not Martin Luther. Martin Luther, dude. Reformer? No.
Yeah, I know who he is.
The
I know
book
who he is.
the book was The Jews and Their Lies.
Yeah.
The Jews and Their Lies. That is a hysterical title.
Well, he wrote that, and I listened to the first part of it. I found this random BitChute video, and I don't know how much of the book I got to listen to. I'm guessing about a quarter, because it was a couple hours long. And it said part one, so that tells me that I didn't hear the whole thing. But I can't find more, unfortunately, because the dude sounded like excuse me, like a motorcycle guy, deep raspy voice. Um, it's pretty epic, but it was good, man. I was like, oh man, Martin Luther was like a beast. And then the other funny thing,
Martin Luther, The Jews and Their Lies, narrated by Ron Perlman.
another interesting thing about Martin Luther, apparently he was extremely harsh, had an extremely harsh stance about women. So I found that kind of interesting. Like they should only be pregnant and only should be barefoot,
And only in the kitchen.
making pie exclusively.
I mean, he was a monk.
But anyway,
and they should be ugly too, for the record.
Martin Luther said, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. Martin Luther was an interesting guy, though. You know, it actually, when somebody is tormented, and faces certain levels of persecution, you know, it's not true of everybody, obviously, but with somebody in context, the fact that he was as troubled and tormented as he was, according to his biographies and stuff, um, that only makes me have higher thoughts of him. You know, respect him a little bit more. The 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 volumes of theology material that he wrote, and he was extremely prolific. And here's a funny thing about it was a personality flaw. The theses that he posted on the wall and everything. He's quoted to have said, "I was only trying to start a conversation," which is hysterical because almost every other personality type would just take that as an attack, criticism, and this and this and this is wrong, as like, hey, okay, never ever come here. He want Allegedly, Martin Luther.
Well, that's funny. It's funny that that's the case because that's exactly what Darwin said when he wrote his book.
Oh, and then he was like,
I don't he honestly said in his forward in his book, like, I don't believe that any of this is actually true.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to open people's minds to the possibility that there may be something else out there besides the common narrative.
yeah,
And then
Well-
everybody's like, but Darwin, and Darwin himself didn't even believe in macro evolution. So it's just it's comical to me.
yeah.
Well, it's supposed to be a theoretical principle. Just because something's theoretical doesn't, I mean, it's still in the process of being proven or not. And as it is right as of today, I mean, we have so many different ways to poke holes in that particular argument that's not even funny.
Yeah.
So I don't know why people that tend to stick to that argument anymore at this point are just, they don't know enough about any other
Well,
argument.
even
Just kind of
modern
lazy.
science has jumped from that argument.
Yeah,
They've left that one in the dust because they
people
realize
that
the
are holding
ludicrousness
on,
of it.
that are holding on to Darwin are people that use fax machines.
Yeah.
Yes, that's pretty much.
I mean, modern science has completely ditched Darwinism. Like they've
Yeah.
completely left Darwinism in the dust because they realize the ludicrousy of it. They can't even defend it anymore.
But the ones that hate God are going to choose nihilism. They're just going to choose nihilism. They're going to say there's no meaning or order to anything. They're going to deny what's right in front of their face, and they really.
Well, now the common narrative has gone to seed. We were seeded here.
Oh yes, like the panspermia thing.
Yeah,
Well,
that is the
like-
leading theory,
they're like
or the
aliens.
Thank you, L. Ron Hubbard.
or it's either that or it's the multi-universe. There's
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of universes, and then they all exist in alternate dimensions, and we happen to exist in one that had the quintillionth of a chance of producing life.
Or the
So
simulation.
basically, if you just throw enough numbers at it, then it's possible.
Or the simulation theory, which, by the
Yeah.
way, my buddy that came on a couple months back from my old job, Ryan, I really loved what he said about that because he's a gamer. And he
Yeah.
was like, if we're in a, this was his take on it, which as a non-Christian, I respected this take. I thought it was funny. He said, if we're in a simulation, then this is why it's not possible. Putting a banana and a pine cone and a brick and a piece of lint from your dryer in a bowl and then pouring beer on it would cause a rift in existence itself, because there's always glitches in code. There's always things
Mhm.
that conflict with each other. So, but it wouldn't just cause a local, it would shut the whole program down. And anyway,
That's so funny.
Right.
Taking things that aren't supposed to belong together from random environments and just jamming them into a blender and just being like, ha ha ha.
well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we know that there's been enough really, really strange combinations and all that good stuff. Anyway, it was a funny idea, and
And I tried it, and wouldn't you know,
if you think
the
about the
next
blue
day
screen,
the world glitched.
exactly. If you think about the blue screen of death in response to simulation theory, and you know that no matter how advanced somebody is, here's the thing. If you call them perfect, you may as well just be talking about God. Otherwise, we would have experienced some version
That's
of a blue screen of death. Because if you try and say, well, no, they're so advanced that they could never even have a blue screen of death.
So you're saying
You're
that
now-
God created a simulation.
You're now talking about God at that point. And the same thing with evolution, with eternity. Because every time you say eternity or infinite, you're literally saying God. It's just you're using a different word for it. And because you're now talking about something that is unobservable, unprovable, all the same characteristics of God. So that's the part that I'm always like, okay, are we really having this conversation about infinity? Do you
Well,
really?
that's the thing with the infinite universe thing. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, as soon as you said the word infinite, you're basically back at God again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no way to get around it, man. Like,
Yeah.
no matter what theory you or explanation you want to use, in the end, it's gonna come back to God because you can't get around it. There has to be an origin, and you can't get
Yeah.
something from nothing. Like, the rules of our existence dictate that that's not possible.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not. Like, and then you take entropy for example, where I mean
Yeah.
it states that
Entropy.
all matter breaks down and gets worse over time, and it's observable. Like, it's a proven rule of the physical world that we live in. And it's like, okay, so now you're gonna tell me that we're gonna break that physical rule to say that evolution makes things better? Like, it's laughable. Like, it's like,
Cycles.
no, you're
Cycles are observable too, though, because as things break down, they become new, but they become the same thing.
I think
Uh,
it
Go ahead.
kind of depending on the two different kinds of people you might be talking to. If you're talking to an atheist, it's a lot different than you're talking to an agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
An agnostic is just somebody that doesn't know, they
yeah,
haven't really looked into all kinds of stuff. They tend to be
which is
more
about
open.
80% of Muslims, by the way.
Yeah, it's probably 80% of our country as well. I mean,
Yeah.
sadly enough, there's a lot of people that have Christian values, but they don't really know what that means.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure, for sure.
but
There's your comfort
most,
Christians that just want to have the fire insurance aspect of it.
yes, and that's not at all healthy either. But that's a side thing. At any rate, but when you talk to an actual person that's an atheist and they cling to that kind of scientific method crap, it's not that they don't know their own arguments have holes in them. It's that they're trying to look on how to run away, and most of the time it stems from some kind of social issue in their life or something like that with dealing with God, or
Yep.
some kind of problem that's internal, or they want
Unforgiveness.
to be able to
Or authority.
basically just, yeah, or they just want to be able to do whatever they want to do.
Well, yeah, the
Now,
minute you
when
accept God, you have to start accepting responsibility for your actions,
Yeah.
yes, yes, I've
which means
actually,
that you either A, have to grow up, or B, you have to do the hard thing and change.
yeah.
So,
This is the thing that gets me though, and then it's the hardest part about ministering to those people that want to basically just do whatever they want to do. They think that that's freedom, and they don't realize how much of an enslavement that is when you are, addicted to different, I don't know, different of your, I mean, your passions or whatever. When you get addicted to a lot of different stuff, that's not freedom. That's slavery, and they
yeah.
don't understand how. I just wish they could experience what it's like understanding my understanding of God, of Him, and it's just not even that super great, just the basics of understanding how capable He is, and how special He is, and how much He loves you, and how much He loves everybody, and his overall design and how He wanted to work. If you were to just look at the puzzle pieces, the way they're supposed to be put together, you know, with like natural design with you, with the being married and stuff like that and everything. And just like kind of like what Owen's life, like living like that. That's what we're all trying to achieve. It's because it's natural and it's so healthy. They don't
Well, it's
understand.
ingrained in you.
Yeah,
It's
they don't
ingrained in
understand
you. Like,
how.
you can't get away from it. You are designed to take care of and nourish the world. Like, that's your entire purpose. That's what Adam was created to do,
Yeah,
was
you
to
just
tend
do
and
what you're
nurture the
designed.
garden. Like,
If you,
it's a,
yeah, well, when we're doing what we're basic designed to do, like, you know, his design, not the corrupted format of it, in your own appetites. It's so healthy, and it's 100 times, 1,000 times better than just, I don't know, just consuming a bunch of crap. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's also interesting to me that
fulfilling.
this like our generation like it's not Generation X. It's like the following generation, like what Generation Y. For
Yeah.
some reason, there's like a huge amount of Generation Y and even a little bit of Generation Z
Yeah.
are like obsessed with getting back to nature and going back to living in the country and being independent and doing things for yourself and the family values. And like it's insane how many people I talk to that are in my age belt that's like that's the dream. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what happened? I mean,
Yep.
and it's almost like a supernatural thing. Like how many of them are just wanting to go back to the way things that should be. Like they don't want, like we use technology and we have technology and we understand technology, but that's not what we want. Like we want to get back to nature and spending time with family. And like I can name probably out of the probably 30 plus friends that I have that are my age, only like two of them are like, yeah, that's not really for me. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow. And there are more and more and more and more people I talk to or sound like, I tell them like, this is what my goal is and this is what I want to do. And they're all like, that sounds amazing. And I'm like,
Yep.
but then you talk to like people that are the age above us and they're like, no, you got to go to college and chase the dream. And like, and
Oh my
it's like,
Well,
God.
dude,
yeah, I think
that,
it stems from the seeded baby boomer lies of like,
For
you
sure.
know, make love, not war kind of crap. Just free love everybody, just consume as much as stuff as you want. And I think as a you kind of see it slowly go through different generations, kind of coming to a point. But I think, and I can speak more to like Generation Z, because I'm 1995, so I'm like right on the border between Gen Y and Gen Z. I don't really know which
yeah,
side I'm
like Devin
relatively
and I
on.
are square in the middle of Gen Y. So
Yeah, yeah,
Huh?
and I've noticed at least for the younger generation Y and the beginning of Z. I don't really know the others because they're too young still. I've noticed.
what most people would label as millennials, but we happen to fall into
Yes,
that generation. But
yes, I understand. Like the younger millennials, technically, and really even a lot of the older millennials as well. I've actually noticed a lot of them they've grown up, and this is particularly the problem with Generation Z is coming to that point. We've grown up in where everything is artificial, like food is artificial, uh, buildings materials and everything is artificial. A lot of
Yeah.
your job and status is artificial. Driving experience is not even organic anymore. It's kind of artificial. It's going to like what is it? Those driverless cars. Um, they're
Yep.
making, I mean, sex
well, life is
artificial. They're making
artificial. I mean, basically anymore,
music.
um,
Social
music.
media, yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
has
even interacting with people is artificial.
relationships are artificial and superficial. Yeah.
Well,
It's getting
everybody,
into
it's funny because we just had this meeting in one of my military meetings, and they're like, their big drive right now is resilience because the suicide rate is so high in the armed forces, and they're like, we got to do something about this. We have to change something, and I'm like, you know what, you need to change. You need to change the fact that people communicate by looking in their laps, and they just stared at me, and I'm like, people don't communicate anymore.
yeah.
When was the last time you actually looked in someone's face and had a conversation? No, you look down at your phone and you text them to have a conversation with them because it's more
Charles,
comfortable.
last Saturday?
Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
I mean
yeah.
Sunday. I mean, some of us are living life with human interaction, um, because
Well, that's what I
we are
mean. Is like
bucking the
everybody
system.
looks at me and they're like, "Why are you so much different than everybody?" And I'm like, "Because I don't converse solely through my phone. Like I actually have physical,
Who are you loyal
meaningful."
to? The who is your master question is the ultimate question.
It is.
Yeah,
Because if you believe that you're your own master, do, who is your master? Well, I mean, I am. I'm the master of my own destiny. Blah 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 blah. Okay, Satan. I mean,
Yeah.
right.
um, so it's about your loyalties, because if your loyalty is to please yourself, then yeah, your phone is going to be your guide, your social media, what people think of you, all that kind of stuff. Um, but if your priority is to serve God, then that will be on your mind all of the time. You're going to be thinking, well, what can I mean, I love God and I love what he loves. What can
Or at
I
least I
do?
want to.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. At least and I mean, that is a good distinction for for Christians and people that are new to Christianity. A Christian wants to love God. Now, do we do that?
They want to want the things that God wants. They don't always
Exactly.
want the thing that God wants,
Exactly.
but that's the desire of their
Exactly.
heart, is to please God. Like,
Yeah. God, I want to love you with all my heart. And I know that there's parts of me that fight that, but
and I don't really know what that means sometimes.
I know, right? Um,
I don't know what that looks like, but I want to try. Like,
dude, I've mentioned this before, but I am such a Peter. I am the dude that would cut off the ear. I'm the
go to
dude,
war for it. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't want to admit that I'm the dude that would deny Jesus. Like, because I'm like, no.
I
But
don't think,
the funny thing is, Peter was thought the same thing. Peter was like,
nah,
Jesus, no,
not gonna happen.
Jesus,
Not gonna happen. But
no.
I think about that. I think about that scenario a lot. Like, if somebody showed up, like, and this is legitimate, because like this is a question you legitimately have to ask yourself, because the easy answer is, oh no, that's never gonna. I mean, that's the easy answer.
Well,
Like, even
they're
even in the
not gonna
situation with like
they're not
somebody
gonna
comes
like.
for your
Yeah,
guns.
it's not you though. That's
Yeah.
the thing. It's the Peter was just. You listen. The Bible could only be so long, right? God's not going to make the Bible 70 million pages long.
Right.
He could have, but he didn't. Um, so the Bible's only so long. But my point is, for you, it's not going to be somebody putting you in a life-threatening situation. They're going to be like, um, I heard that you love Jesus, but I'm going to kill your kids if that's the case. You're like, what? Jesus? I
Who
mean,
is that guy?
that's what that's the Peter thing to do, right? Now, not everybody would be like Peter in that situation, right? And not everybody would lose their kids in that situation either. But the Peters out there would fall into that trap. And I'm not saying that there's a right or a wrong. God knows everybody's heart, and
And God clearly forgave Peter too.
yes,
Like,
exactly. I mean,
and I think that's the
upon this
best
rock,
example.
I will. Listen, it was upon that rock that God wanted to build the church. That's extremely important. So, what does that mean about?
Yeah, but he was talking about the rock that they were actually standing on.
Yeah, but it was metaphorical too about his character.
As also, he was speaking about a physical location
His name
where they
was
were standing
Rock.
on the mountain that he ascended from. Like,
Yeah, that makes sense. But his name was Rock, right?
right. I mean, it's a definite dual meaning, because Peter
Yes,
means rock.
yes.
Like,
So,
I see the duality in it, but like there's also a really cool story in the fact that he actually did build his church from that location
yeah,
outwards.
yeah. So all I was saying is the the tenacity,
Like,
the maybe tenacity is one of the good words, but just the faithfulness, the it is a faith thing, and people within the body of Christ should definitely be um
And the second example of that is Thomas. And I love the story of Thomas, because
Thomas
there
is
are
great.
people out there that need to have the proof. They need to. And God made enough proof for them to be able to see him.
So here's a funny thing about Thomas. So as you probably already know, Thomas was a twin.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing about the life of a twin, this was in a sermon I heard once, that I thought was just fascinating. What's up?
I didn't realize he was a twin.
Yeah, so Thomas was a twin, which means that he was also extremely familiar with the case of mistaken identity. This connection was very fascinating to me because it was all part of this sermon that I heard years back, and I was just like, "Oh wow, that's really good." So Thomas was a twin, and he wanted proof. The life of a twin is the life of, "Hey, are you? Oh, you're Thomas. Oh, God, I could have sworn. I'm sorry, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you got. I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
identical twins you've known, but you're always like, no, I know who you are. I know. Wait, could it be? Could it be? So, so the reason that Thomas, hypothetically, this was part of. This is all based on, what is the word for this? This isn't theory. This is educated guess slash context. But anyway, hypothetically, the reason that Thomas wanted to put his fingers to actually see the wounds is to be able to emphatically prove to himself as a twin that this was Jesus, not some mere look-alike. Well, you're saying you saw
Mhm.
Jesus, but like, listen, I deal with this all the time. Let me see the Jesus. And the way that I know that it's going to be the Jesus is by putting, I just need to see the wounds, because there's not going to be some other guy that looks exactly like Jesus
Yeah.
that also has the wounds. So anyway, this was all part of the sermon, and it's actually, sometimes you hear sermons and they're less sermony and more educational, and that's kind of the way that this one was. But um, I was like, oh, that's really fan. And what's really fascinating about that, once you understand a little bit more of the context, is um, the nature of, for some reason, I guess you turned your camera off, um, but the nature
But yeah.
of um, how much criticism Thomas gets. Oh, doubting Thomas. Oh, are you doubting Thomas? You must be a doubting Thomas. How much criticism Thomas gets for doubting when it was really actually a reasonable thing. Basically, historically, Thomas gets a lot of beef or whatever, or bad reputation, when in reality it was a perfectly normal and reasonable thing for him to have issues with. That's all.
Yeah, and it's just humorous to me that uh it's encouraging too, because I'm one of those people that I like to see proof of something. Like I don't want to. I'm not just you're there. You're like, hey, I did this, and I'm like, okay, do it again. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm just like, no, I don't buy it. Like, I need to see some proof that this is reality. And that's why I mean it's part of just who I was growing up too. My parents taught me like to question everything. Like you don't
Yeah.
just take somebody's, so like the with the evolution thing. Like okay, well were you there? Like what proof do you have that this is reality? Like what proof can you offer me on dinosaurs, or like what, then they were just big and driving into me, like question things, like don't just accept something because somebody says it's true, like actually find the reality and the proof behind it. So for me, like it's encouraging to see that like Thomas needed proof. Like he needed to see the proof. Like he's
Hmm.
like, no, I mean, I it's not that I don't believe you guys. I mean, you guys aren't liars. I mean, I know who you are, but like for me, I'm gonna need to actually see him. Like I don't think you guys are lying to me, but I think you could be mistaken. Like I need to see proof. Like, you know. So it's encouraging to me that God allows for that, and there's a perfect example of him allowing for, because he said, well, blessed are you because you've seen me and you believe. Like, and well, but also blessed are those who see and or haven't seen and
Yeah,
also
exactly.
believe. So like,
So it's interesting when you start to break these people down and understand all the different examples for people that went to heaven. You've got folks like Paul, that by all worldly standards is inexcusably n- like the worst of the worst. Like we think of the worst people on the planet, the most evil, like pedophiles and stuff like that, people that harm children, people that throw Christians in piles and set them on fire. That might go that might go a little above. I mean, you love God, so I'm going to kill you, might have to remain the level one highest possible um it's just offensive. But Paul, just where God can bring people from, and everything. The Peters, the Thomases, all these different people and their background, their story, their context. It should be, nobody should be left feeling like, well, not me. God could never, which God could never, isn't it?
I've done too many horrible things in my life. Oh, have you put Christians in a pile and set them on fire? No? Okay, well, you're probably all right. Because that's what Paul did, and God wrote 3/4
Yeah.
of the New Testament from him. So, I mean, he
Yep.
literally hunted down Christians, and he got a writ from Rome to go hunt them elsewhere.
Yep.
Like that's the guy that wrote most of the New Testament. That guy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, listen, I got to jump off here because I got to go spend some time with my family. So,
Hey, that's a reasonable thing.
yeah,
Hey, a bear arms.
we're gonna sit down and be indoctrinated some more. So,
Oh yeah, through who?
through Disney, of course.
Oh, I see.
We're gonna watch the old End Game so I can critique it.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, by the way, I don't know if you've seen Aladdin yet, but um, apart for some apart from some feminist agenda type stuff, I thought it was a pretty good movie.
I've heard the Lion King was pretty lame. The
Oh,
live action Lion King. I've heard it was pretty lame.
that's a hard one to pull off. I thought
They just said it,
Aladdin.
it lacked the color and
Hmm.
the ability to carry over like what the Disney like animated film actually accomplished. Like, because you can only give a cat so much expression. Like, you can only
Yeah.
like, and it said the voice acting was pretty terrible.
Oh, and
Like,
it has to be spot on. JTT was, and he was a. I mean, he was already super popular, but no,
yeah,
I mean, I actually would tell people, like, if there's going to be a Disney movie you're going to watch Aladdin. It was good. If you've seen the first one. If you never saw the first one, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's not that
hmm,
important of a story. But if you watch the cartoon as a kid, watch the new one. They did a good job. It's worth a watch. As a
hmm,
movie all by itself, I don't think it's really that great of a story at all, but it's good for nostalgic value. They definitely accomplished the goal of um, of satisfying people's nostalgia. That that's
hmm.
that's how I would put that basically.
Cool.
So
Well, good talk, guys. We
yeah,
covered a
man.
broad range of topics, and I'm gonna go ahead and jump off. So
All
have a
right.
good night, Hayden, and Devin, you too, and I'll talk to you guys later.
See you later, man. So here's what's kind of strange. Um, we've had one viewer, we've had two viewers. Nobody has chatted tonight at all, and I've been putting messages in the chat. Uh, say something. Welcome. Invite others. Guys, for real, if you're here, say something. Have some fun. Who is here? Question mark. Hello? Question mark. So pathetic. I'm looking at my comments. I'm like, somebody's gonna watch this video later on and just be like, "Oh wow, that's really pathetic." But it's weird, Usually there's a lot more participation, um, and it's not because you're not in the chat. There's a few people that are usually here that just aren't, and the people that were here are some of those ghosts that like to just hang out and never say anything. I never know who those people are really, obviously, because they don't make themselves known. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird, but yeah, we touched some topics tonight. There's um there's some topics that I'm like, oh, I kind of want to talk about this thing, but then again, um, I don't really have a reason to talk about it. So, like for instance, um, the Epstein stuff, I don't have a reason to care.
Yeah.
You know, I lean for anybody else out there that's like, oh, what are we supposed to think about this? For me, I lean on the confidence in God that He's the one that will get vengeance, whether He's alive, whether He's dead, whoever participated in any wrongdoing. We can't do anything worse than God will do, um, and we can always rest assured that God's punishments are more than we could ever imagine. Um,
Yeah.
so anyway,
Yeah. I suspect, and I don't. There's different perspectives on afterlife and stuff like that, but nobody obviously knows because of dying, the whole loophole thing with that. But I suspect that there's not really as much of it as it is a hell because of the reading of Sheol. I kind of lean towards that, the understanding of Sheol of it being the boat of the dead and there being Abraham's bosom. Um, that's just my perspective.
what do you
But
mean until the devil is cast into the lake of fire? Is that
yes,
and then there and what you so you're saying that there's a waiting period and then there's the ultimate
I,
eternal damnation
yeah, I believe that there
situation?
was a waiting period, for the Old Testament saints, and then after Christ, then it's every man in order, as it was talking about in I think it's Second Thessalonians. Um, I think it's Second Thessalonians 2. It might have said that. Any rate, that's void of point. I kind of wonder if he's just going to get rid of those people instead of send them to hell because of the verse where he's talking about fear that which can destroy both body and soul or whatever
It's an
along the
interesting
lines.
idea.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember that verse of what I'm talking about?
I do. I don't agree with that concept. It has a one of those theological titles called annihilationism.
Yes.
Um, I'm not a big fan of that because it seems you know how people talk about suicide being cowardice? How, oh well, you couldn't face your troubles and you checked out, What a
Yeah.
cowardly way to go out, right? That's kind of the
Yeah.
general natural consensus. Not everybody feels that way about it, but in general, that's kind of the way a lot of people feel about it. To to God knows what He's doing. We can't argue with that. And there's plenty of evidence that God's punishment is sufficient and all of that. There's no reason to believe otherwise because of God's holiness and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
But annihilation, logically speaking, from our perspective, seems um, less of a punishment than eternal punishment. To
Yeah.
Because when something's final, it seems less. So, like as opposed, so for instance, in a living sense of things, the difference between somebody that gets the death penalty versus quadruple life sentence in prison, like no
Yeah.
chance of parole, blah blah blah. Everybody usually looks at that person as the worst sentence because they have to face their crimes. Now, I personally believe that it's a little bit better because of what I think about of life. Because I believe that if somebody has 60 years to think about their crime, they have an extremely high likelihood to become saved and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
However, if once you're dead, that's no longer an option whatsoever, and you are stuck in an eternal consequence for your refusal to acknowledge God, and then you're stuck in an eternal loop, so to speak, of absence from Him, which is the
Yeah.
absence of all that is good, which is darkness and pain, fire being one of the most relatable pains that we know how to experience while we have life. I don't believe that the fire and the darkness and the rotting are metaphorical necessarily. I think that they're both literal and figurative. Personally, that's the way that I look at it. Um, but to me, annihilation seems like a lesser consequence than eternal punishment, and and at the same time, no one really knows. I just trust that
But
God is holy, and those who love God uh, by the grace of Jesus will be with Him, and those who refused to acknowledge God will be absent of God. And whether that is eternal damnation or whether that is annihilation, um, God knows what He's doing. I don't lean towards
I don't
the
think
idea
it's
though.
as much of what would be the worse or thing for the crime or whatever the thing or
Hmm.
the sin. I think it's more about the greater of his purpose. And to me, to my understanding, I think it's more about him trying to figure out he could make two different kinds of servants. The whole thing. People that actually wanted to freely do that, and people that just did it like robots. It kind of gets into like the whole Calvinist Armenian debate thing.
Hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really care to go into depth for that,
Oh,
but
I hear you.
because people could argue about that all day long. But
Sure good.
I definitely could see it for both. But I think in the greater purpose, I don't think he's out to make people that he loves, even if they don't love him, suffer for eternity. I think he's just trying to figure out who is okay, who loves him and is willing to do what he told us to do. Um, and at the end of the day, I mean, I don't really know. It's just the thought that I kind of ponder with the way some of the scriptures worded, because it talks about them being shut into outer blackness and stuff like that. And it just sounds kind of like they're just not anymore in that particular scripture. I
Yeah,
don't really
and then
know
on
what
the
he
other
means.
hand, how do you even describe in words extra worldly extra
Exactly. Yeah.
things how do you even put into words things that are beyond extra dimensional even? Um, how do you even explain those things? Dimensions is I think a really cheesy uh childish way to try to describe heaven and hell, to try and say that they're just in a different dimension. I think that that's insufficient, and I don't like that terminology, but anyway, yeah, that's interesting. I think that it's hard to put into words and hard to help readers with this earthly life to even understand
Yeah.
how to
I'm
understand the
not sure.
spiritual, the unseen things, because that's what we have. That's our context. How do you explain something you don't have any context for?
Yeah, well, we're only allowed to know so much here as it is, anyways.
True that. But we know, or we can know what we need to know,
Yes. Yeah.
is how I would put it, and that is the gracious reassurance that He has given us. Well, man, it's only 9, but we have had a kind of pathetic participation, really the most pathetic ever. I've never done a Friday night hangout with 0 the entire time. We'll chalk it up to technical difficulties for the first 30 minutes. But I don't know, those two people that hung out for like 30 minutes and never said anything, that's kind of strange too. Maybe Charles keeps saying, there's theories that those are just YouTube employees. And I'm like, I have 333 subscribers, or 334. I'm among a sea of people. I'm like, I'm so not important. So for there to be an actual employee devoted to even a minute of my stream, it seems really unrealistic. But
That's very strange.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory, but
I think, at least as far as me, that maybe they're just night shift and they're working. Because that's typically what I would do. Is I would be working and I couldn't, physically.
oh yeah, yeah, that makes sense. You're right. I mean, I did that all the time. Um, yeah, I get that. At work, can't chat, but you can listen.
Yeah.
uh, oh man, I never got in trouble, but I always felt like I was this close.
Hey, cat. Sorry, my cat
No,
is freaking out.
it's all good. I always felt like I was this close because I'd be like, I've got to say something. Oh boy, I had to say that message, which I obviously didn't, but certain streams and stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to say something.
Yeah.
Um,
Once, yeah, I've been there.
yeah. Yesterday or the day before, Owen did a stream and read this woman, Susie G's music or whatever, and he read this letter and she was asking for subscribers, I guess, a goal of 100, and in about 7 or 8 minutes, she had like 450 or whatever subscribers, and that kind of stuff's really cool. I like to see that happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, man. Well, good talking. I'll have to look up some of what you're talking about with the potato vertical farming.
Yeah.
Stacked maybe is a good keyword with that.
Yeah. Like potato crates or something like that.
Yeah.
And you'll definitely find it.
So anybody else out there that does watch this video, because there will be a few of you, obviously. Well, not obviously. I just kind of assume, but yeah, we'll have to check that out. And sweet potatoes would be a fun thing to grow too, just because you know potatoes are good, but sweet potatoes are yummier. They pretty
I'm
much have the same nutritional stuff as far as I know.
looking into growing this. It's like a flat kind of bread type of wheat. I can't remember. It's called sombra or something like that. Or I can't remember what it's called offhand. But I'm looking into growing that for chicken feed, so I can have my own chicken feed.
Look into it's easier to get these days. Teff,
Okay.
um, TEFF. It's an Ethiopian grain. It's the highest yield grain per gram or whatever. So like a handful of this grain, just like you put a pile in your palm, you can grow like a half acre of this grain. Like the grains are the tiniest thing you ever have seen. I don't know if you've ever seen amaranth. You could probably
Amaranth, yeah.
you could probably stick 4 or 5 teff grains inside of one grain of amaranth. That's how small teff
Oh my
is.
gosh.
Um, it's very small. It's what they use to make Ethiopian bread that's called injera. Tastes like sour. Well, injera is a type of sourdough. It's fermented, but it's got a real nice earthy flavor. Um, if you like, if you like whole wheat, I imagine if you were to make an actual bread from teff flour, it would be extremely earthy and on the whole, like the whole wheat plus, basically. I'm gonna have to try that though. I've been saving my teff. I've made like pancakes and different things like that from teff, but I'm actually have to make a loaf of bread from it. I was planning on fermenting some and making injera, but now that I think of it, I may as well try and make a loaf of bread from it. But yeah, look into teff. It's not too expensive, and it grows obviously in Ethiopia, but they supposedly are growing a lot of teff in Canada. So if it can grow in Ethiopia and it can grow in Canada,
Canada.
then you're talking about one of the hardiest grains around, highly nutritious, all that good stuff. So it's pretty fascinating. I've never grown it, but I've just read a lot about it, and I love Ethiopian food. Um, so yeah, but yeah, let me know what you end up growing because anything that is a good grain that is easy to grow and you could end up making bread out of, obviously would be really useful. Um,
Yeah, that's my goal is basically to have enough to feed my chickens and make bread.
yeah,
Because
yeah, food for the animals too. You got to always remember that.
yeah, unfortunately, they provide the most protein and everything, but they they take up a certain kind of feed. Then I mean you can free range them, but it's just I don't know, you're risking on losing them. So
Uh,
I have to kind of be there during the day too to kind of watch after them.
Gotcha. Animals aren't enough. They're not sufficient to protect them, basically. A handful of guard animals, like something.
If you got more, like, you can kind of mix them with like goats or something like that in the same yard, but sometimes they don't. I don't know. They don't mix, and they can help guard them or kind of keep some animals away. But I mean, all in all, if I don't know, if you come like around here, it's the eastern coyotes are what we're most worried
Yeah,
about. If you keep like a goat or something in there, it might keep them away. But I don't know. There has to be enough for them to eat because I think goats will eat stuff down to like nothing.
yeah,
Versus sheep. The sheep will just trim off the top of it and they'll regrow. But I
interesting. Yeah,
don't know, there's different mixtures you can do. But
cool stuff. Well, we'll have to keep in touch with progress and stuff.
yeah, we'll
And I need
definitely
to grow
do
something.
some. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do some research and all the different options we have for homesteading. I'm, I'm
I
in
was
contact with a couple different older people at my church that are already doing that for quite a few years now. I like getting advice from them from people that go beforehand. You know,
so,
saves you quite a bit of time.
so I was thinking about doing vertical type farming with a 4-inch PVC.
Okay.
Um, so let me see if you can see me. So so a pipe that would run, I don't know how many degrees that would be called, 20 degree, 15 degree, or whatever. But anyway, a slant, and then you would put um, a 65 degree, not a 90 degree, because you have to compensate for your slant. But anyway,
Right.
whatever the case, you attach some type of elbow, and then you put another straight pipe, another elbow, and then you slant back, and then you go do the same thing over and over. About 3 or 4 runs, 6 or 7 feet tall, all in all, and you cut little holes or whatever, diags, and that's where you do your planting every like 6 inches or whatever. You plant you fill the whole thing up with dirt, and every elbow that you have to have a stop, some type of filtering material that will allow water to go through, but will keep the dirt back. um, and then you repeat the process at every bend, um, so that you water at the top, water trickles down the entire way. um, it's I've seen different models and different ways of doing that, but it's a fascinating idea. It seems fun. I'm sure obviously you have to deal, as with all things, you have to deal with bugs, pests, and you have to deal with weeds always. But I
Yeah.
think with that model, you deal less with weeds because the way that weeds happen two different ways. So I understand, at least. One way is they're already in the dirt that you purchased or whatever, used, or from your own property, or you purchased in a bag at the store. It's already in there. Or birds, is the other main way that you get weeds. But anyway, that model seemed like a really fun way, especially of doing like something like herbs, oregano, and stuff like that. So I want to try that eventually, but I like what you said at the very beginning, which I don't know if was on this version of the live, but I like what you said about a lot of people are like, oh, I want to do turnips and I want to do lettuce and I want to do this and I want to do that. And in a lot of ways, you need to master one chief crop and then add slowly.
Yeah.
You can't really do everything all at once because, um,
Well, it's a lot to bite off all at once.
yeah, you're gonna choke. You're not gonna keep up. There's differences between the plants. They require different planting times, I'm sure, and um, yeah, there's a lot to keep up with.
Different nutrients, different spacing.
Yeah,
It's yeah, it's there's a lot that goes into agriculture people don't really realize.
yeah, and you can do a lot with a little. There's a three and a
Yeah,
half acre farm um, near where I live with some folks we go to church with, and their farm is able to support their family. 3.5 acres, they can grow enough food to make a living income and feed their family. Yeah, I'm sure they
yeah,
grocery shop too, um, but they probably don't buy very many vegetables based on my conversation with the man. Um, it's just really cool. They're not
yeah,
high on the horse. They're making like 40 something thousand a year. Um, but that's fine.
yeah. It's fine.
It's um, and it's such a good life. They've got
Yep.
these people have 4 kids, and they're providing those kids with you know, such value. And their kids are smart as all get out too. It's really cool. Homeschooled.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah.
Now,
Alrighty,
like,
man. Well, I'm gonna let you go.
yeah,
I wish there had been a little bit more fun in the chat. That usually helps some things, but it's all good.
yeah. I'm surprised Goose isn't here.
Yeah, he usually comes to hang out. I just saw on Discord, like I don't do much on Discord at all, but I just saw on Discord that um, one of his comments, he was giving somebody the down the road look like, uh, which sometimes that's well deserved. Um,
Yeah,
what is this? Yeah, I don't even know. I don't do the Discord stuff anymore. I just
yeah,
figured I'd post a couple of the link to this video and whatever. No big deal. It was a fun conversation regardless of who was watching. So, alrighty, man. Well, I plan on being back Friday. I'll keep on inviting you as many times as you'd like to come. Appreciate talking with you and getting to know you a little bit.
yeah,
Um, and and then if more people join us, anybody that watches this video, you can recognize the fact that you know, we might have you in the conversation too. It is an elite club. You have to sign a lot of documents.
yeah.
I'm just messing around. All right, man. Have a good night, and I'll
Night.
maybe see you next Friday.
Yep.
All righty. Bye for now. All righty, everybody. It is the end of the night. All the viewers have made their way to bed or something, and we are calling it goodbye. As I always say, don't forget to love the Lord your God. Let's see if I can do this here, right here.